Welcome to Face to Face. I'm your host, Genevieve Lefebvre. Face to Face is a bilingual series of videos recorded here at the Société francophone de Mayerville. We acknowledge la Société francophone de Mayerville operates on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Coquitlam. We thank the Coquitlam who continue to live on these lands and care for them, along with the water and all that is above and below. Today, we are welcoming Carmen Smith. So welcome, Carmen. Welcome to the Face to Face.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be with you today. Carmen, you are a carrier of the BRCA, right? BRCA breast cancer gene. So due to the high risk factor, which is all the way almost to 88%, you have decided to do preventive double mastectomy and also other surgery to prevent cancer. So my first question for you today is, could you share a little bit about your decision process leading up to preventing with the double mastectomy and the other surgery you have chosen to do to prevent cancer?
Yeah, it was a difficult decision to make.
I think so, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the factors that played into it was being a mother. I had two small children, a daughter and a son. And so, of course, those were big factors to think about in terms of if I could do something, find information out that would potentially prolong my life. I really felt I had a responsibility as a wife and a mother. And I also, at the time that I found out about my positive gene results, I had a dear friend that had stage 3. She had just found out she had stage 3 breast cancer. She was a mom from the school. And that really played into my decision making as well. Just being given this opportunity, it really felt like a golden ticket to get ahead of something that now this dear friend was facing. Yeah.
And what are those surgeries you decided to do?
So I tested positive to the BRCA1. There's a BRCA1 and a BRCA2 gene mutation. I tested positive to the BRCA1, putting me at a high risk factor for breast and ovarian cancer. So my factors for breast were upwards of 88% chance, so high risk. I was told basically by the surgeons at BC Cancer that it was not if, but when. They were just waiting.
Wow. So it's so high, right?
Yeah, they just said they're 2 ticking time bombs. We can monitor them. However, we're anticipating at some point they're going to go off. And then when it came to my ovaries, there's really not a great screening method for ovarian cancer. Usually we find out about ovarian cancer when symptoms have already started. And so I was told that my risk factor there was 1 in 20, that I already had ovarian cancer. And with so little screening
So it's already
measures,
in you, basically.
Potentially. And the only way to really rule it out was to have surgery and then find out basically from there. So I decided to move forward. I met with BC Cancer, with the surgeons there. They armed me with information. Taking those stats into consideration was a huge factor. And then having a dear friend, of course, that was facing this. So I opted to remove my ovaries and fallopian tubes first. So that was my first surgery. I had 3 surgeries in less than a year. And then shortly after that surgery, I ended up removing both breasts. And then the way it worked in my case was, instead of reconstruction immediately, they use tissue expanders. And so you basically grow your own skin and make room for breast implants to be placed 6 months later.
Okay.
So that was how my surgeries went. And so I did opt to have the reconstruction done after my double mastectomy.
Okay.
Yeah.
In 2019, there was a worldwide breast implant recall.
Yes, there was.
And you had to remove those breast implants to your own fees, I believe. So.
Yeah, I found out about the breast implant recall actually through a family member. It was on the news. They did report it on the news. However, nobody advised me. So
you didn't get a call?
I didn't get a call. I didn't get a letter from the plastic surgeon that had done my surgery, which I was shocked by, because if there's a motor vehicle recall, you would receive a letter or a phone call offering you the opportunity to replace, the part that's been defected.
Yes.
I didn't receive anything. So it was my aunt that had seen the news report in May of 2019 and asked me the question, what type of breast implants do you have? And I had no idea. I hadn't even thought, well, I happened to be going to see my family doctor that same day, which the irony in that. And so I asked him immediately, and he looked and he just went white and said,
Okay.
oh my God, you have the recalled breast implants. So at the time, it was sort of new. And so the medical, like, they were sort of receiving this, and everyone was kind of seemed like they were a bit panicked about it. And more or less, I felt like I was told that I was being dramatic about
And
finding
who
out.
told you that?
Probably both my general practitioner. His first response was, you know, we've just found out about this. We need to sort of look further into it, that kind of thing. And I think that when you find out information and then you start recalling, like I had been in the doctor's earlier that year with some autoimmune symptom type things, and there was things in my health that now I was kind of questioning. Is any of these factors potentially linked to this now recalled breast implant? So same when I went to see the plastic surgeon, the response that I got was kind of dumbing it down. That this recall wasn't as big a concern. And I remember my reaction was pretty strong, especially to the plastic surgeon, first for not notifying me in any way, and then his response to me in terms of like, why would you remove them?
Yeah.
And I said, well, because
Yeah, they didn't call you. That's kind of...
Yeah, so I was lucky to be in the good hands of a general practitioner who took my concerns seriously, sent me for an ultrasound to check to make sure just how things were, because you really have no idea what's happening with these implants unless something shows up. And they were showing no signs of failing or anything. However, in the ultrasound, there were things detected that didn't look right. And then I started to do like an examination myself, a breast exam myself, and noticed that I felt a fluid sac on the right side, lower right side. And so then I started kind of panicking. Yeah. And when I had the ultrasound done, there were signs that there was something going on. And so then I had to go for a fine needle biopsy. That's when things got really serious.
So the risk of keeping the implant was another type of cancer?
Yes, lymphoma.
Lymphoma. Okay.
Yeah. So
that was specific with that type of implant.
Yeah.
So that was why, this is why it was recalled.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there were women that had died.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a significant recall. It's a worldwide recall. So yeah, like there was some significance to this. And I really felt like the response to me was, well, it's a wait and see approach. If you start to have symptoms of lymphoma, then we can deal with it. And I knew when I had the ultrasound and then the fine needle biopsy and things weren't looking right. They didn't really know for sure what was going on. I made that decision. I knew intuitively that there was something going on in my body. And I think that you know that. I think that anybody can try and talk you out of it or tell you that you're being dramatic, or they can say anything. But when you really can feel that in your body, there's that knowing. I had that knowing. And so I moved towards removal. And it meant that I had to go to another plastic surgeon because I was not being received by my original plastic surgeon. He wasn't taking it seriously. And he also was implying that I would replace the implants.
Okay.
Without even really asking me the question of if that was something that I would want to do. He more or less said, well, you have to have breasts. And
But that's your decision, not his.
Yeah. So it was an interesting experience to go through. And that's when things got tricky. Trying to find a plastic surgeon, and also feeling like time wasn't on my side, that there was something, a foreign object now that had been recalled that was causing women to get very sick. And I just knew I needed to move quickly. And if I would have gone the route through BC Medical, I would have been waiting for probably 18 to 24 months, I was told, to have it covered.
So what was your cost then?
So I opted to do a private surgery to move as quickly as possible, and I paid $10,000.
For removal?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Have you heard about anybody here in the Tri-Cities going through the same thing, like had the same gene or decided to have the breast implant removed, or it's something that is quite rare, so it's hard to find a community around you that actually experienced it?
Yeah, I would say that locally that's been difficult. I think there's probably a few different things going on. I'm a pretty open person, so I'm open to talking about what my experience has been and share it to help other people. And I don't know that it's something a lot of people will share. So locally, I didn't find. I've heard of people that have said, "Oh, I know somebody that's getting tested for the gene mutation, or it's in somebody's family, but they haven't decided," that kind of thing.
Yes.
But I've never met somebody locally that carries the gene mutation or has experienced what I've experienced in terms of the breast implants. And the support really that I found was online mainly. There's Facebook groups that women have started to get the word out and to talk about symptoms and to talk about different ailments that were happening and they think are due to their breast implants. So that's where the conversation has been, is mainly online. Yeah.
I have heard quite a few times that some women don't feel right after a little while, after getting their breast implant, there's something off. It's like if something has changed. And more and more I'm hearing women decide to remove them.
Yeah.
Even if there's not any gene or cancer issues, it just does not feel right inside of them. There's always issue, autoimmune issues, different things like this.
Yeah.
So you touched on that a little bit earlier, but in that group and people around you, there was probably a lot of people like this also, right? Sharing those type of personal issues.
Definitely. And once you started hearing more stories, I've heard a number of stories now, like just through the online community, of women that have just chosen out of not necessarily the risk. Some have decided, I don't want to put myself at risk for a form of cancer. And some people have just, exactly what you said, didn't feel right. It's a foreign object in your body, and your body's response to that foreign object, it depends on the person. Some people respond very well to breast augmentation, and some people don't. And so it's an interesting conversation, and I do think we're sort of moving in a way where women are looking to be more natural in some cases and deciding. Some famous actresses and things have made the choice to remove them, which is interesting because that also brings attention to the cause, which I think is really important. I really just want people to know. I think information, that's power. The more information you can get to make the best decisions possible, especially when it comes to your health. I just think it's really important, and there's not a lot of conversation happening around it.
So now that you've done all those surgeries, is there still a percentage of risk that cancer can still come, or it's much more minimal now?
My risk factors were highest in terms of breast and ovarian.
Yes.
I still do have other risk factors. Melanoma is another factor of cancer that can show up. Colon is also something that's monitored.
With that gene? Or, okay, specific to that gene?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are other areas that my family doctor and I definitely keep it on the radar. So if there's anything odd showing up, that we look into things. So yeah, there are other risks for sure. But the high percentages were mostly to do with the breast and ovaries.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's probably quite emotionally heavy, challenging. And how did you navigate all this, and how did you cope? And what was your experience through this big wave? And also when you're finished, now you have to do it again. Do you have any coping strategies for us?
Yeah, it definitely was challenging. I think that when we think about the female body and how we glorify female figure, I think also being a mother and making that decision had an impact. I did go through a bit of a depression and needed support, so I did opt to have therapy around it, which was very helpful. I think talking about it and acknowledging and grieving.
Yes, it is true. It is their step of grieving through her
Yeah.
the breast or the complete, especially the breast. I think that's what we see a lot, like socially, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and I think that honoring that grief and giving myself time to adjust. There was an adjustment, of course, when I had the breast implants, but then there was a further adjustment years later. It was roughly 8 years later that I went through the recall and decided to remove them. And once again, this time there was going to be a very different result, and accepting that there would be. I think when it comes down to it is I ended up losing that friend. Um, she did lose her battle with breast cancer, and I think that I have just that's always been at the forefront of my mind, and that my life is a gift, and I just choose to make the decisions, whatever I need to do to make sure that I'm here. Um, there is an honoring to that loss for sure. It's an important part of it. I'm lucky enough. I have a wonderful husband who has been incredible. He has been a huge support and has never treated me any different. And I don't. We are not our body parts.
No, we're not.
We are so much more. And I think that it has challenged me in ways to look inward and recognize that, and to know that our outward appearance is one thing, but what the light we carry within us is so much greater and so much more. So it's taught me a lot. Yeah, definitely.
So choosing to remain flat,
yes,
and wearing prosthetic, right? Is it like, what was the challenges around that? Like, is it more difficult to even shop, or like?
Yeah.
Is there certain things you can't really wear anymore? It's like that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, definitely. And figuring out sort of, there's so many different kinds of prosthetics, deciding what works for me. Some of them are very heavy. So really navigating, that's been tricky. And I think that that's where I wish more women sort of came together and shared. The online community shares quite a bit, but there's something about like face to face with somebody, or having somebody even go shopping with you and show you like these are the items, instead of just sort of sending you to a website and saying, well, this is where I had some success with some items. That's been sort of an interesting, and it's one of those things you just have to keep trying to find what works for you. Some women are very comfortable not wearing any prosthetics at all. I've chosen that I prefer to, and that might change one day. And so I'm very open. I am very open about it. I pay attention to what feels comfortable for me, and I let myself sort of lead that. But there's not a lot available around. There are some companies. Athleta is one of them that has done an incredible job of creating what they call empower pads. That's what I've chosen because they're very light. They can be slipped into bra quite easily. So that is a company that I think is doing great. Le'Veon Rose is another company.
Oh, okay. They one at the mall?
No, they don't carry them in the mall.
Okay.
That's the tricky thing. And you kind of have to like seek it out. So it's once again finding these, they're almost like clues, and then going on a little bit of an adventure to find out, what's out there, what is it. So there are some different options. But yeah, like it's not so, they're not at your fingertips. I had to do a little bit of seeking and searching.
I can understand how that takes time, and you have to be grace, give a lot of grace to yourself during that time.
Absolutely.
Because I can see how is your family, like because how many children do you have?
I have two.
Two, and of course you had to be
open
and done having children when you went through all this.
Yeah, that was a big part of it, especially when we looked at the first surgery, removing my ovaries and my fallopian tubes.
Yes.
I knew, my husband and I knew that we were done with our family at 2. However, there was a moment when I realized, by doing this, like it removes any chance of ever having any more children. And so I did have those moments, and I really stopped and allowed myself to experience that, all the feelings that came with that. But I was lucky in that we have 2 children and happy. So
and then it shows, you found out about it after, so you had the time to have your children.
Yeah, and I feel like, even with the breasts as well, like I wasn't facing a situation where I wouldn't be able to breastfeed. And there's so many factors that come in when women are having to make these decisions. And I feel like at the time in my life where this came into my life, I'm very grateful that I had already had my children and that they were at the ages where they had started elementary school.
Okay.
And so it was more so my focus became on them and ensuring that I'm here for as long as I possibly can be for them.
And were they okay through surgery? Was it like scary for them, for the children, for your husband, for your family?
Yeah, I was very open with them. Someone told me that the best time to share with kids is when you're driving, because then if you're crying, they don't even see you. Like you can look in the rearview mirror and sort of see.
Was it what you did?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did, but then the conversations opened up from there.
It just opened up, yeah.
And I think it's been really important for my kids to see that, these kinds of things can happen, and to be honest with them about what was happening, I think was really important. Yeah. And so we let them know everything.
So we can talk about this forever.
I know.
But now, given your experience,
if
you have a take-home message for anybody like that is listening to us, that knows someone that has the gene, the BRCA gene, or that has it itself, what would you say to those women? Or men, right?
Yeah, well, yes, because men actually can get breast cancer. They can also, the gene was on my dad's side of the family, and so my dad carried the gene.
Oh, okay. So that could have, if your dad's still alive today?
No, he's not, unfortunately. However, he never had any signs of male breast cancer, but it can happen. So my message really would be, one of the biggest things I've learned through this process is trusting yourself. It's your body, and nobody knows your body like you do. And giving yourself time and space to make these big decisions, and making sure that you're getting answers to questions that you might have. Going online and sort of like seeking out information to do if you were to make a decision to have the removal done, deciding whether implants is the route you want to go, arming yourself with information.
Thinking about possibility of recalls, right?
Yeah, I never even, I think that in hindsight, I never knew, first of all, that a breast implant is not a lifelong implant, that it has to be replaced and it should be monitored. I didn't know that. I didn't know that you should be going for regular ultrasounds to make sure that they're intact and that there's no issues with them. They can fail. Mine actually did fail. When we did have surgery, they had ruptured inside of me. And that's what was happening in terms of the fluid. Could have made me very sick. It was already going into my lymph nodes. And so I would say trust yourself and seek information and seek the support that you need, because it's there. It might not be right at the forefront, and you might have to, I had to advocate for myself. I had to fight hard at times, and for what I needed. So yeah, that's what I would say. I really do. I think intuitively we carry that intuition within us. We have that inner knowing, and trusting it.
Well, thank you so much, Carmen. It was a pleasure and to discuss this with you, but thank you for your openness, because it's not everybody that like you wants to talk about this, and I'm really present to the fact that it's hard to share, but if we don't, who will? Someone has to get out there and talk about it, and all the possibilities and problems that can happen with having the BRCA gene, but also having breast implants. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So from the Tricitiestv Community Television, La Société francophone de Maillardville, and myself, Geneviève Lefebvre, thank you for joining us.